Then I came back Minnesota, and then year after there was another international symposium on authorized media. So I went back to Sweden, and I arrived in Stockholm a couple of days earlier than the meeting, which was going to take place in Umeå, which is northern part of Sweden. So one day, my fellow was coming to join us, and he also wanted to see Stockholm. So he asked me, he and his family asked me to find a hotel, rather reasonable hotel. So I know a little bit about Stockholm. So I tried to find a reasonable one, and I found it, and I made the reservation. Then I came down and walking towards the street. Then from the other side, a man was coming whose face was familiar to me. He was the former governor of Minnesota, Wendy Anderson. So my father always told me, whenever you see someone whom you know, even though the other side doesn't recognize you, just say hello to him. So I remember that. So I said, when we, close, I asked him, "You are Mr. Anderson, aren't you?" And he said, "Wow," he was surprised. So he asked me, "How do you know me?" "Well, I'm at the university, and you are our former governor." Well, he was very pleased. And he was visiting his mother, and he was just going, walking the street, just relaxing. And then he invited me for dinner that evening. So I was happy I didn't have any commitment, so I had a nice dinner with him. And there he asked several questions, and then afterward I found out he was governor and the senator, and then he became the president of Minnesota Swedish American Association. There are many Swedish immigrants. So he said, "Hey, Stephen, do you have any idea? I'd like to propose something, because there will be a General Assembly in a month or so." So I told him, well, I had also Swedish students in my laboratory. Lars Lundman, he was a PhD candidate. So I spent a year earlier, in Stockholm. So I told him, why don't we have this exchange program, formalize this exchange program? Well, he said, it's a dandy idea. Good. So I told him, Bengt Samuelson, my former mentor, was the director of Karolinska Institute at that time. So I introduced him to Governor Anderson. Then I went to a meeting in the northern part of Sweden, Umeå. And I forgot about it for a while, and then when I came back to Minnesota a month or so later, I got a phone call from the Vice President office. Former Governor Mr. Anderson is looking for you. Please come to the office. So I rushed to the office, and he had a big smile, saying that after he met me and also the Bengt Samuelson, the director of Karolinska Institute, he came back and discussed this thing with the board members of Swedish American Association, and they all were very excited to initiate this exchange program. And one of they discussed it at the General Assembly, and the one man who was sitting in the front line was Kurt Carlson, who was the owner of the Radisson Hotel. And he was so excited and happy to donate $500,000 for this program. And wow. So then university has a rule that someone donates some amount of contribution, then they usually add up the same amount to have a fund, sort of.
Match it.
You match it. So all of a sudden, $1 million came out, you know. So my father was right, I think, to say hello. I didn't really expect that kind of thing, but, you know, during the conversation, I thought, I have a student. I was in Stockholm earlier, and I had a student, so why not, you know, this exchange program. That's how we started our exchange program between the two institutions, faculty and also students. And it has been going on. And our department has some privilege. We usually have funding from them to host the joint symposium or meeting with Swedish Karolinska people. So every 2 years we go there, and every year they come, and next year we go there. So we have this exchange program last some years.